The Koan sculpture is an amazing sculpture designed by legendary architect John Portman. It is going to be a 40-foot high sculpture that rises into the air. It consists of 3 rings that are connected, designed to look like it's floating and designed to look like movement. The exterior of the sculpture will be made of our SculptureStone material, which is the same material we use here to build these bathtubs and sinks and showers. And Mr. Portman fell in love with that actual finish and wanted to create the sculpture out of that material. He personally challenged us to help him figure this out, and he said this is something that had never been done before. And to him it was really important to get this piece produced.
He really honed in on Russell, asking some of our mold techniques and mold process and things that we can do, and immediately sort of took to letting us know that he thought we could do it, and looked Russell in the eye and said, I think you could do this.
MTI has over 30 years of experience as a luxury bath manufacturer, and during that time we've learned that one of the best ways to grow business is to solve problems for people. So when Mr. Portman brought the sculpture to us, we didn't hesitate. We knew that we had the resources to solve his problem, to make his vision come true.
Other projects that we've been doing recently, where we've supplied bathtubs to Zaha Hadid's very last project in the Western Hemisphere, which was a tower called 1000 Museum in Miami. We're working on the tallest residential building in the entire world with Extel Development in New York. And to be able to work with John Portman and Associates, who have made some of the iconic, most amazing properties all around the world, was a perfect tie-in with MTI.
Koan is like many other things that John Portman designed. He started at one point, and he develops what he wants to say or what he wants to do. But as he gets started with the design, he figures out a better and more imaginative and a different way to do things. And that's what Koan did.
Mr. Portman challenged us to help create this vision. When he first came to us and asked us to build a 21-foot tall sculpture, that seemed doable. When we presented that proposal to Mr. Portman, he took our 21-foot sculpture and slid it off to the side and slid in a 40-foot sculpture and said, this is what we really want, this 40-foot sculpture.
But we ourselves could not build a 40-foot tall sculpture. So we had to look sort of outside of MTI, but knowing that this was what he was spending most of his time on, it really rang through that we have to figure this out. We as a team came back and said, we are going to do this.
Why MTI? MTI is a manufacturer of bathroom products, and we're in the most prestigious hotels in the US and in people's homes throughout the US. I think Mr. Portman chose us because he knows that we could get this project done. We're medium sized, we're not huge, we're not teeny, but we're small enough to be nimble. And I think he saw that, saw our innovation. And because he loved our products so much, he loved that and wanted us to build this project with those materials.
He had been experimenting with making a sculpture out of Koan, working with a company that made these for him. It was MTI Creations. We realized we could never do that. We could never keep it the thickness he wanted using Koan. In fact, we doubted if we could really do it out of any metal. We had to come up with something new. When we started talking to John about that, that got him very excited. We knew of nobody who had ever done this before.
So after a lot of research and meeting with different composite vendors, we determined that the best material to build this out of would be carbon fiber, which is a space-age material, super lightweight. It's used in the aerospace industry.
We were architects and structural engineers. We knew how to build buildings out of steel, but the only material we thought would work would be carbon fiber, which they use to build spaceships, they use it to build airplanes, but they sure don't use it for other things like this. We knew we weren't prepared to do this. We weren't equipped for it. We needed help, so we knew where to go for that.
Georgia Tech is the largest aerospace engineering program in the country. The process that we did here was first to get the information from the wind tunnel, virtual wind tunnel, the loads, the material, the geometry. We build our model. We simulate this model in a supercomputer that we have here on campus with more than 100 processors to check every and all of the parts and the components of the structure to make sure that every portion was acceptable in order to be manufactured.
We also were looking for someone that had a large envelope CNC machine, a 5-axis CNC machine. Here at MTI, we have a 5-axis CNC machine. We use it on our mold plugs for all of our tubs and sinks and shower bases, but nothing as large as what was needed for the Koan sculpture. Knowing boat manufacturers use large envelope 5-axis CNC machines, as well as some use carbon fiber, that was a good start to look for someone that could partner with MTI to build a sculpture. On the list, there were 10 potential partners. I called every one of them. Many of them built boats and had no interest in building a sculpture. But when I contacted Adrenaline Boats and spoke to Mike Layton, he was excited to work on a project outside of the boating industry. Once we determined that this was a possibility, I introduced him to the rest of the team and we began planning the build of the Koan.
By now we knew we were putting together a team that was going to take a lot of controlling, but we were pleasantly surprised. We found that they were all eager to try this. The other thing we had to look for is a coating. So MTI went out and found a coating company. But one thing we specified, if you do, we've got to have a coating that if anybody puts graffiti on it, we can wash it off. So we had all the components. We had all the people available. Now we had to figure out how to design it and how to build it. And talked to Mr. Portman, and he just looked and he said, "Mickey, y'all just gonna have to do it." He was getting very, very ill. He says, "Finish it for me." So that's what we're doing.
The Koan, in my opinion, is the world's most technically advanced sculpture that's ever been built. The beauty in it is that it looks abstract, but the genius is in the 3 rings being the same and stacked such that it's manufacturable. MTI's primary role on this project is as project manager. My role in that is to lead the project through the engineering process, through the manufacturing process, and eventually the install process.
Throughout this whole process, Georgia Tech has been heavily involved through their engineering group. They've been doing a lot of the stress analysis, load analysis for us, verifying that the manufacturing process that we've chosen, the materials that we've chosen, the design, the connectors, those materials would all work well under an outside environment, being on a college campus with students around it, validating that the material will be what they're looking for now and in the future. Our material is extremely durable, it's seamless, it's aesthetically pleasing, it's attractive, and that was our process.
The initial estimate for the timing was going to be about 7 months, and that was assuming nothing would go wrong. That was a best case scenario. No manufacturing problems, no design issues, no weather issues that would delay us later on in the project. So we knew that was a best case scenario, but we were thinking a year, maybe with some minor delays and kind of typical things you might encounter in any kind of project. Again, this had never been done, so we were just really guessing. And sure enough, delays did happen, some longer than others, and ended up taking about 2.5 years from the date we signed the contract versus the 1 year we'd originally projected.
MTI Bath started working on this project with Portman in June of 2015. A lot has happened since then, and a good bit of the manufacturing of the sculpture happened during 2020, during COVID. Of our 300 employees, approximately 150 were affected by COVID, either by having COVID or being exposed and having to quarantine. We had to send Kevin Hyde, who's our VP of Engineering and Manufacturing, over to work directly on this sculpture while at the same time having him back at MTI to make sure that our projects were getting out the door and everything was engineered properly for all the new products that we work on.
It's 3 rings. It's held up in only 3 points at ground level. There's a tremendous amount of weight on that that will have to be supported. And the carbon fiber process is unique in itself, that it's typically used on automotive and boats and things like that. This is really one of the first applications that we know of where it's being used on a statue. Most of the statues out there use traditional materials. They're using stones, metals, they're using fiberglass. This is a bit unique that the carbon fiber strength to weight is just incredible compared to all the other materials. So we've been developing this now for about 1.5 years, and today, after being on site for about 3.5 weeks, putting the parts together, doing all the finishing work, doing all the moving around of parts, we're finally at the point where the first ring was put into position. Ring number 1 being the most complicated, we really thought that was going to be the most difficult to install because of the different angles for the clamps and the bases and lining everything up. It turned out to go very smoothly. We had a couple of glitches, but they worked through it pretty quickly, and it all worked out nicely. At MTI, the materials that we use in our bath products are being used on the statue, so now we're actually starting to see that come to fruition as well. So it's kind of just an exciting day for us.
Now, we put up ring 2 last night. The install of the first 2 rings went very, very well, exactly as we wanted them to go. We all expected to have problems, but we didn't. And the reason we didn't is Mike and his people. We first fitted them up in the shop and made all the corrections we needed to make that for these 2 rings.
Ring 1 went well, ring 2 went well. Today's the biggest day of all, bringing out ring number 3. We're going to turn it at about a 45-degree angle, and then they'll fly it up on top of rings 1 and 2, and then they have steel plates and bolts that they will use to connect all that together. Ring 3 is the most difficult ring to install just because it's going to be hanging in the air. There's so many different angles and compound curves and connection points, and getting all that engineering figured out so that everything connects properly is the hardest part.
I think the difficult part of this has just been trying to maneuver the odd shapes of these rings. Center of gravity is hard to find, hard to locate, hard to manage. And when we put this 3rd ring in place, for instance, we sort of have to pick it up, bend it a little bit so it fits just right in the position, and then lock it down. I think this is a great example of different businesses and different people with different technologies coming together to create art.
So that's what makes this so interesting. A world-renowned architecture firm, a manufacturer of $1 million speedboats, and us here at MTI Bass, the premium bath company, all coming together to build something that is truly extraordinary, that is the Koan sculpture.
And ultimately, it was our mutual respect for one another that allowed us to work together and work through issues in the name of the project that John Portman, his last designed product, we were able to push it through and get it done. Maybe not in the initial time frame we wanted or expected, but it was done and done correctly. That thing will last forever, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art.
I think it's been a long journey, and we're excited about bringing our people out here and show off what they're working on all this time. We've got a total of about 12 to 14 of us that have worked on this. They work 10 and 12-hour days on it. MTI is a very proud company with what we manufacture, and I think they'll be extremely proud of this also.
I'm just really proud and thankful that we got the opportunity to work on this project. I think it's something that's going to be around for a really long time, and something that we can all be proud of that we were able to do together.
This was John Portman's last design problem. This is the last thing he worked on. But I think we produced what he imagined, and I believe other people who get a chance to enjoy it will enjoy it greatly.
The interesting thing about the completed project is that people will be able to experience the design by walking through, and as the sun or moon travels through the sky, they will have different design experiences infinitely.
And so having this Koan structure in the middle of Georgia Tech campus is really going to emphasize the importance of looking for new materials, making them stronger, lighter weight. How can we build the next bigger and better thing? I hope the sculpture will ignite creativity and challenge the artistic, architectural, and engineering contributions of the Georgia Tech students. I hope it will help them understand that almost anything is possible. Hope it will remind them of John Portman and his legacy, and that they will study it and its accomplishments in architecture, and it will inspire them to create amazing architectural projects all around the world.